So this is our very last Shiur for Shnas Tov Shin Pei. And when we see each other again, Bezrat Hashem Bekorov, it'll be a new year, Tov Shin Pei Aleph. Looking back at the year that has gone, we all have such mixed feelings. Moido ala ovar v'tzoyek ala osed. I have no words to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for watching over me and my family and all the others. So many tens of thousands of people have been ill. Thousands have passed away. Many of them wonderful people we knew. And Baruch Hashem, Siyata D'Shmai have been well. And I said many times, as careful as you are, as cautious as you are, you could follow all the rules. You have no guarantee. So many people that wore masks and were careful got the disease. And others that are totally reckless are doing fine. Im Hashem lo yivna bayis shavav lo boinav boy, Im Hashem lo yishmo shav shokad shoymeh. So I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'tzoyek ala osed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should watch over all of us, and we should be able to keep up doing our duty, serving Klal Yisrael, doing our best in our Botzes Torah and Chesed. So we have so much to thank for and so much to ask for. So every year in this period, we say to each other, Tichle Shona v'kirlo yiseo, Tochel Shona v'berch yiseo, and it's just a greeting, like saying, good morning, how do you do? I think these words this year have so much added meaning and significance. And we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tichle Shona v'kirlo yiseo, take away this klola, take away this curse. It's been a terrible curse. This coming year should be a year of brocha, of shefa, of nachas, of simcha, and of good health. So many of the recent shiurim have been about the Yonah de Yoima, with some emphasis on COVID-19, on the Corona period, and today's shiur as well. So today we will be discussing a minhag Yisrael of Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. What is the source of this minhag? What's the rationale? And especially a question that many have been asking, the people that are in quarantine and isolation, and the people that chas v'shalom are ill, shakadosh baruch hu yishlach refuah shleima. Could they do a Hataras Nedarim on Zoom or by a telephone conversation? So first of all, the fundamentals, the basics. What is the source of this minhag? Nedarim Chof Gimel Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, Haroitze shelo yitkaimu nedarim v'yamoid b'Rosh Hashanah v'yomer kol hanedarim shani yosed lidor yihiyu b'teilem. So, if a person wants to annul, to invalidate all the nedarim he will make in the future, he needs to stand Rosh Hashanah and say, all the nedarim that I might make should be invalid. Why does the Gemara point out to Rosh Hashanah? Shita Mekabetzes brings from the Ra'im, just coincidence, it could be any other day. B'Shem Reb Nesanel HaKadosh, I don't know who that was, Reb Nesanel HaKadosh. To the best of my recollection, nowhere else does the Shita Mekabetzes quote someone by the name Reb Nesanel HaKadosh. But Reb Nesanel HaKadosh said, it's not just coincidental. Rosh Hashanah because of Emes Yom Adin, because of Rosh Hashanah because you want to do the right thing, because Rosh Hashanah is everyone is worried about Aveda Shabiyodai, then we assume that when he says Kol hanedarim shani osed lido yu b'teilem, he says it with the Gemara Das, with proper intent, but in any other day it would be meaningless. So according to Reb Nesanel HaKadosh, and the Shita Mekabetzes also quotes it b'Shem Yesh Mefarshim, it's Dafka Rosh Hashanah. Might that be the source of the minhag? That's what the Shlo says. Ner Mitzvah, the beginning of Masechet Yuma. The Shlo says, this is the Gemara. This Gemara is the source of the minhag of Kol Nidrei. But Kol Nidrei is Yom Kippur. The Gemara says Yamid Barosh Hashanah. So obviously Barosh Hashanah doesn't necessarily mean Rosh Hashanah, but beginning of the year. But the Shlit does says Rizin Magadimin to make a Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. So the minig of Kol Nidrei is an ancient minig. It's not in the Gemara, neither Bavli nor Yerushalmi. But all the Rishonim talk about this minig, and the Ran in Nedarim Chav Gimel. The minig of a Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah is a younger minig. We do not find it in the Rishonim. We do find it in the Shlo. The Shlo suggests maybe that same Gemara is the Remez. Birkei Yosef, the Chidot of Kuf Pei Aleph, quotes Shach al HaTorah. Who was the Shach? He was a cousin of the Ari HaKodesh, a Talmud of the Mabit and the Shitta Mekabetzes. Shach al HaTorah Pashas Matos says that one should do a Hataras Nedarim b'Chodesh Elul. He doesn't specify Erev Rosh Hashanah, but Chodesh Elul. And he writes Remez l'davar. Lo yachal davaroi, kechol yoytzim apiv yasa. Saf tevois, lo yachal davaroi, kechol. Aleph lamed vav lamed, Remez and Chodesh Elul. Where do we find the first time the Nusach, Shimu Nura Boisai Dayone Mumchim? I think the first source is in Shari Tzion. Reb Nosson Nota Hanover, 360 years ago approximately, the Shari Tzion was first published. It is a compilation of tefillas and brochas, and it is there that we find the Nusach of Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. So obviously, it's a minig Eretz Yisrael, more or less in the time of the Ari HaKodesh. Shara Tzion, Reb Nosson Nota Hanover, was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Vital. Mate Ephraim, Tov Kuf Pei Aleph, Sif Memtes, writes that many are noyeg to have 10 people for Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. That minig is brought in the Shlo, who was many years before the Mate Ephraim, but they do not explain why. Ktsei Mata, and the Mate Ephraim quotes, Sefer Yehoshua, Rabbi Yeshua Heschel Ba'abad, was the Rav in Tarnopol, an uncle of the great Minchas Chinuch, and the first of the rabbinical dynasty of the Ba'abad family. Sefer Yehoshua Chelik Beis Makuf Tzadik Tes explains, because in the Nusach of Hataras Nedarim Erev Hashanah we say Shenadarti o Nishbati Bein B'Hoketz Bein B'Chaloim. If a person makes a neder while he's dreaming in the middle of the night, there's a machlokes in the Rishonim whether it needs Hatorah. Shulchan Aruch, Reish, Chav, Gimel, Siv Beis. Shulchan Aruch says, Neder B'Chaloim doesn't need a Torah at all. Yesh oimrim shetzorach hasora diyoda lemikre. Yesh oimrim that you need 10. Why 10? Ran in Nedarim Daf Ches says maybe it's similar to nidui b'chaloim, which necessitates 10 people. So the Mechaber's ikar opinion is the Shitta Rishoina. Whenever the Mechaber brings two opinions, Shitta Rishoina b'stoma, Shitta Shniya, Yesh oimrim, halochik is Shitta Rishoina. But in this case, the Mechaber writes, Ra'ui lochush lidivreim. And the Shach Siv Koten Hay says, Kein haminag. And that is the source of the minig to do Hataras Nedarim for 10 people. So why don't we do so? Loi chazinan lerabonan kshishoi she'ekpidu bekach. Because the Ramah on the spot writes, Im I efsha bekalus lekabetz asora, then do it before 3. If it's not easy to bring 10 people together, do it before 3. So obviously, mishum tercha de tzibura, it's not always easy to get 10 people to sit and do Hataras Nedarim. It might even be yohara, and that's why the minig is not to be makbid, even though it is an early minhag. So most people do Hataras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah while they're sitting in shul after the slichas, before davening or after davening. You take some people, some kids that are next to you, and you do Hataras Nedarim, and it is very common that 2 brothers sit together, or father and son sit together. Is that okay? Well, 3 people is a basin. How could relatives sit on a basin? But it's a gemor mefureshes Nedarim Ayin Zayin, and that is also the Psak Halacha mefurish in Reish Chav Ches Siv Gimel. No problem. It's not like Din HaMomenes and Din HaNefashis, which you need to, deliberate and argue and Toras Nedarim, even Kroivim could sit together. Kroivim, yes, but Noshim V'Ktanim, not. That's what Rabbi Kiva Eger says on the spot in Pischut Shuv and Siv Cotton Tet. So recently I've seen some Gedolim writing that women should do a Toras Nedarim as well. And in one Choshev Seif I saw that a woman should make her husband the Shaliach. I don't think so. HaToras Nedarim Erev Rosh is not a chiyuv. It's a minag. Because Mamon Avshech, if you actually have an Nedarim, you're not supposed to wait till Erev Rosh Hashanah. Hanoider ki libona boma v'amakayim kilu hikrav olei korban. We do a Toras Nedarim even though, in all likelihood, we never made a neder, we never made a shvur, definitely not a nido v'shamto v'orer v'nazirus shimshun, nazirus. It's a minag. Ve'ein lecho boi elo minhagoi. Ve'ein lecho boi elo chedushoi. I'm not aware of any of previous Gedolim that wrote that Noshim need to do a Toras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. Minig Yisrael Torah, Aleim ein lahoisef u'mehen ein legroya, v'kol ha'moisef goreya. It's unheard of that Noshim do a Toras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah, and therefore I feel there is no need. I don't see this as a chumrah. I see it as something which doesn't fit into the context of proper hanhoga and proper the way we relate to minhoga Yisrael. So the Ramah writes, Reishud Aleph Sif Aleph, she'ein lismoich ala Toras Nedarim shel kol nidrei. Does the same apply to a Toras Nedarim of Erev Rosh Hashanah? Which one is better? Which one is more valid? There's room to argue a Toras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah is superior, is better than Kol Nidrei, because Kol Nidrei, it's not the noider, the person that made the neder, directly asking a beis din to invalidate his neder. Kol Nidrei is more of a tefillah. We stand in public and the whole kehillah together says Kol Nidrei with the Shliach Tzibur. It doesn't really resemble a proper Toras Nedarim. So maybe Erev Rosh Hashanah is something we could rely on. But no. In essence, it's the same. Because the source of the Ramah is Mari Weil, as we see in Darkei Moshe. And Mari Weil writes, Loi chazinen l'rabonik sheshoi should be Matan Nedarim without a beis din and relying Kol Nidrei. Same argument, same words could be said about Erev Rosh Hashanah. Loi chazinen l'rabonik sheshoi, to say there is no need to be Matar Neder. We said Shemunu Raboisai. It's the same. So obviously, the way we relate both to Kol Nidrei and to a Toras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah is more of a minag, not a real proper Toras Nedarim. So there are more rates. Ein lismoich im loy letzoyrach godol. So b'shas adchak, one could rely. Many Gedolei Yisrael paskind that if we're not dealing with explicit nedorim, but rather with minag shel mitzvah, one could rely on a Toras Nedarim Erev Rosh Hashanah. Salmas Chaim, Shalos HaTshuvos from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Chelik Beis, Simen Lamed Ches. I don't know whether you're familiar with this sefer. It's very different than any other Shalos HaTshuvos. One-liners, two-liners, very short, almost without sources. You must understand how this sefer came to be to appreciate it. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld was a real gadol. There was a person davening in his minyan in Yerushalayim, Mira Kodesh, in the morning. His name was Reb Shlomo Sobol. Every day, he wrote a few questions on little pieces of paper, scrap paper, and put them under the talis of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And when Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld put together his talis and tefillin, he scribbled his answers on those little pieces of paper that Reb Shlomo Sobol left him. And Reb Shlomo Sobol took those tshuvas that were just written, scribbled, ben gavra la gavra al rega lachas, under his talus, and he printed a sefer, Shalas Tshuvas Salmas Chaim. So it's not really proper Tshuvas, but it is a choshev sefer, because after all, those were the opinions and the rulings of one of the Gedolim. Rabbi Shel Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zanafeld, and Lamed Ches Chelik Beis, he says, regarding minig shal mitzvah, one could rely on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Moren Reb Analeb Shteiman, with whom I had such a close relationship, he was such a schus, he was such a tzaddik and a gadol. I miss him a lot. And I heard from him that he heard from the Chazon Ish, same psak. It's also printed in the name of Rav Shteiman in a sefer Al Betomor, Yoredeya. I think it's Us Mem Zayin. Rab Chaim Kanievsky, Moron, also has Hataras on that very same sefer, and he testifies that his father says the same, the Kelis Yankov. And Reb Shlomo Zalman, Mincha Shlomo Chelak Aleph Semen Tzaddik Aleph, I think it's Ois Chaf. Reb Chaim once again, Derech Emunah, Matnes Aniyim Perek Zayin. V'Harishoin, and the one that came before all the ones I mentioned was the Maharsham. Das Torah, Yoredeya, Reish Yud Aleph, says the same. So we do rely on a Toras Nedarim of Erev Rosh Hashanah when we're dealing with a minig shel mitzvah. And one does not need to do a Toras Nedarim. But l'chumra, if there is a necessity, even by minig shel mitzvah, l'chumra, we do a Toras Nedarim. So regarding the question of Zoom, is it valid for a Toras Nedarim? Nedarim Chesed Amud Beis, we find in a boy in the Gemara, Baal Mashiach Shliach leNidrei Ishtoi. Could a husband come before Beis Din instead of his wife? The Gemara says yes. The Ram brings a Machlokes Rambam in Tosfos. Why is the question presented dafka between husband and wife? Two different opinions. The Rambam Perek Vov Mishvuos Halacha Daled says Shlichus doesn't work by a Toras Nedarim. The one that made the neder, he needs to come before Beis Din. Only a husband is different because Ishtoi Kigufay. Tosfos has a totally different opinion. To the contrary, Tosfos says another Shliach Pshita de Mahana. Why not? There's no need for the person to come personally before Beis Din. He could send an agent. He could send a Shaliach. Only by Baal, only by a husband who were afraid that he will go beyond what his wife asked him to say. Because when Beis Din is mater a neder, the Beis Din must be convinced that the one that made the neder really regrets it. So we believe a Shaliach. He has no interest to change or distort what he was told to say. But a Baal feels close to his wife, and therefore he might add on and go above and beyond what his wife said, and therefore that might not be okay. And the maskon is, even a husband could be a shaliach kal v'choyim ala acherim. Shulchan Aruch paskins in accordance to the Rambam, Reish Chof Ches Tzayin, shlichus is not valid. However, the Rosh, Perek Hamad Mesechet Nedarim Simen Zayin, brings Rabbeinu Shimshon that a person could send a letter to Beis Din in Ksav Yad and express regret. Rivash Simen Shin Ayin says maybe a letter is better than a shaliach. He doesn't explain why, but it's not difficult to explain. The one that made the neder, he needs to express regret and ask for the neder to be annulled. Hu velo shaliach. When he sends a letter, that letter is directly to the Beis Din, so it might be better than a shaliach. However, the Rivash is medayik from the Rambam, even a Ksav Yad would not be enough, because the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch say the one that made the neder, he needs to come before Beis Din. And the Rivash is medayik, and the Beis Yosef quotes the Rivash. Neither a shaliach nor a letter would be sufficient. And the Taz on the spot, Sivkot and Chof, brings the hachroa of the Beis Yosef. However, the Rivash, Misvora says, maybe a letter is better than a shaliach. He's medayik from the Rambam, a letter isn't good either. V'ra'ui lo choish l'dvorav. And that's the lesson the Beis Yosef quotes, mashma midivreim, ra'ui lo choish l'dvorav, v'bishas atchak we could be making, and that's what the Pischei Teshuva on the spot writes, Sif Koten Tes. Shas atchak yesh laho ke'el k'tzas. So the Pischei Teshuva quotes the Nedarim, quotes the Chassam Sofer. Our case is definitely defined as a shas adchak. So there is room for leniency. In my opinion, our case is better than Ksav Yad, better than Shlichus, and even Lachatchila we could be mater neder in this fashion. And why is that? So the Rambam doesn't explain what's the problem with sending a shaliach to ask for Hataras Nedarim. Why not? Radbaz on the spot, Perek Vav Mishavuos, the Radbaz explains, because the Beis needs to question the person and really be convinced that he regrets it, and he has a reason to regret the neder. You can't question a shaliach. He's not the one. You can't question a letter. Rabbi Yosef Shol Natanzan, the great Gaon, in his Sefer on Hilchos Nedarim V'Shvuos, Divrei Shaul, Reish Chof Ches, Yivkot Chof Aleph, writes, Yeshli I think what he says is very similar to what the Radbaz says 300 years before him. Divrei Shaul is in Shulchan Aruch, the Radbaz is on the Rambam. So Rabbi Yosef Shol Natanzan says the same, and he says you can't send a shaliach because Beis Din needs to question you. Maybe the shaliach is lying. Maybe he's not accurate in what the Baldover said. If that is the rationale of the Rambam, then a telephone conversation is different. You could question a person on the phone. You could question him and judge his response far better by Zoom or by any other technology in which you not only hear the person, you not only could exchange words with him and converse, you actually see his face. And you can have a very good impression of, is he honest? Is this really what he means to say? So l'cha'oira, a Zoom conversation or even a telephone conversation would be different than a letter, definitely different than a shaliach. So we are dealing with a shas adchak, and therefore my psak was very clear that yes, one could do a Hataras Nedarim by Zoom or even by phone. There are many amongst us, v'tovei brocha al rosham, that don't have Zoom, that want to keep away of any connection with the internet. Sondern sein gebencht, tavo brocha al rosham. But regarding our question, whether it's Zoom, whether it's different technologies, whether it's a telephone conversation, even lachatchila one could be mater neder. So in normal circumstances, I would say, do what the Rambam says, do what the Shulchan Aruch says, come personally, don't use technology. But we're not dealing with normal circumstances. We're not dealing with normal days. And so many people are in bidud. So many people are ill. I do not want them to leave their homes. And therefore my psak is very clear. You could do this by Zoom, by telephone. We had many opportunities to talk about davening with a minyan on Zoom, and I made it clear you cannot be mitzdaref to a minyan, but you could say Amen. You could even say Yud Gimel Midos Shel Rachamim. But have in mind that you're saying Yud Gimel Midos Kekoyre B'Torah, say it with a nigun, say it with a proper tune. So if you are in bidud, you could daven along with a minyan, by telephone, by Zoom. You cannot be mitzdaref to the minyan. but it's the right thing to do. It definitely is b'sho שהציבור מספללים שתפילוסוי של אדם מסקבלס. So this is our last year for Tov Pei, and we're approaching Rosh Hashanah. In our tefillas in the Yomim Nedarim, we use double language, dual language, Avinu Malkeinu, Father and King. Im kevonim im kavodim, we are your children, we are your servants. So let me share with you a very fundamental thought, just an Eitz Tova. When I say Avinu Malkeinu, what I bear in mind. No one in the world loves more, would like to help more than a father. Kirachem of Albonim. Every father would like to give each and every one of his children a 5-room apartment, a private house, whatnot. But a father's ability to give is limited. His resources are limited. He would like to help. Not always is it within his power. No one in the world has the ability to help another like a king. All the oitzres of the malchus are his. That not always would he want to help. Not always is he interested to help. We turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we say, Avinu, you're a father. You want to help. Malkeinu, you're the king. You could help. You're not only the king, you are Melech Malchei Hamlochim, Kol Yochem, Kol Yudea, omnipotent and omniscient. Everything is biyodcha. You want to help. You have the ability to help. So why aren't you helping? We are the problem, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a father, he's a king. He wishes to give. He has unlimited resources to give. We need to be better. We need to know how to ask. I said a few times lately, Ani ledoidi v'doidi li. We need to be fitting. Pischuli Pesach kechudoi shel machat, v'ani eftach lachem psochim shu agoyles v'kroinoi sovrim behem. So we use double language, Avinu Malkeinu, because we are terrified from Midas Hadin, Mi Yiskel Ofanechu Bedin. So we hope HaKadosh Baruch Hu will judge us not as a king, not as a judge, but as a father. So what's the Zgula? Perekuv Gimel and Tehillim, Posek Yud Gimel. Kerachem av albonim richem Hashem al yereav. And that's a surprise. Because what characterizes the relationship between father and son is avo, not yira. It's love, not fear. In Kedushin Daf Lamed Vav, there's a machlokes Reb Yehuda v'Reb Meir. When do we define this bonim lamokim? When do we define this avodim lamokim? Reb Yehuda says, בזמן שעושים רצונו של מקום קרויים בונים, בזמן שאין עושים רצונו של מקום קרויים עבודים. When we're good, we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all our hearts, we're bonim. When we go astray, we're avodim. Reb Meir says, ben kach u ben kach kruyim bonim. But the Zohar HaKodesh and Parshas Bahar explains, there is no contradiction between bonim and avodim. We are always bonim, and we are always avodim. We love HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we're His children. We're in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we are His servants. Both are essential. Each and every moment of our lives, we need to be bonim and avodim. The Zohar says, any mitzvah that you perform without the chilu urechimu, love and awe, like Parchas Leila, doesn't go up to the heavens. We are always bonim and we are always avodim. We love because we're bonim. We fear because we are avodim. So why is the Pasuk says, Kerachem av al bonim richam Hashem al yire'av. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to say Kerachem av al bonim richam Hashem al ohavav? My feeling is this: yes, it is natural that children love their parents. It is what to be expected. It's natural in the course of human relationships. But it is not enough. We have a mitzvah ish imoy v'ovev tira'u. And if you're really a good son, a loyal son, a loving son, you must understand it is not enough to love. Ish imoy v'ovev tira'u. It's not enough to love. You need to serve. You need to be an Eved and not only a Ben. So some children, boys or daughters, could very much love their parents, but I don't feel comfortable giving my old and disabled mother a shower or taking off my father's shoes and socks. Let his Filipini do that. Let his caregiver do that. No. You need to love because you're a son. You need to serve because you're an Eved. It's not only ahavas av ve'em, it is also ish imay va'ovev tira'u. In Minchas Shel Torah, I wrote an idea about the Akedas Yitzchak, an idea that has great appeal to me. Many ask, what is the Nesoyan, the great Nesoyan of Akedas Yitzchak? Wouldn't we expect the same from any God-fearing Jew? Thousands, tens of thousands of Jews were Moisei Nefesh, gave away their lives al Kiddush Hashem throughout the ages. So my idea is this. The Rambam Perik Yud Melchus Shuva, this entire Perik is dedicated to Avodas Hashem Me'avo, to Ahavas Hashem. And the Rambam writes, first and foremost amongst Ohavei Hashem was Avraham Avinu. The Novi Yeshayahu calls our people Zera Avraham Ohavi. Avraham Ohavi. V'loi kol hachachamim zochu lemida zu, writes the Rambam. As I explained, children love their parents. Avodim fear their masters. When a child questions his father's behavior or how his father behaves to him, it is legitimate for the child to ask. Bring it up. Talk about it. We encourage children all the time. If something bothers you, talk. Talk to your parents. With derech eretz, with achnoah. But it's legitimate. You're hurt about, you have bad feelings, talk about it. A slave doesn't dare to question his master's behavior. Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, Kach es bincho es yechidcho asher ahavto es Yitzchak, ve'alei Hashem liyoilo, slaughter him. Avraham Avinu had 1,000 questions. He couldn't believe his ears. He was the one that battled Avodah Zorah. In Megillat Avdalad, Chazal talk about Yiftach Hagalodi. And Chazal say, Yiftach did an awful thing when he offered his daughter as a sacrifice. From Avinu Nushas, he remembered the Gemara in Megillat Avdalad. Amei Kedem, Oivdi Avodah Zorah, used to bring human sacrifices. Al Pi Torah, that's an Isur. So Avraham Avinu was blown away. Could this be? But I heard it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avraham Avinu has many other questions. מתחילו אמרת לי כי ויצחק יקול על החזורה, ועכשיו אתה אומר על ההלאה ליועלו. But Avraham doesn't ask. וילכו שניהם יחדיו. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me to do. Suddenly, Ahavo turns to Yira. And Avraham goes through a transformation from Ben to Eved. That was the Nesoyan. And what does the Malach tell Avraham Avinu? when he tells him, Al tishlach yod choranar, Ato yodati ki yerei Elokim ato. We always knew that you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Nesoyen was, Ha'im ahavu yasero mekalkeles es ashuro, Ato yodati ki yerei Elokim ato. That is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects from his children. Bava Basa Kuf Chav Zayin, there's a Gemara. If an older person comes to town with a youngster, if he called him Beni, he's not Naaman. We don't believe him when he says later he's an Eved. If he would be a slave, you wouldn't call him son. But if he called him Eved, and then he says, it's really my son, he is Naaman. We believe him. Why did you call him Eved? The Meshamesh Leika Avda. He's so loyal. He's so devoted. He's so dedicated. He serves me as if he would be a slave. So what we learn from this Gemara, yes, sometimes a most loving father will call his most loving, devoted, dedicated son a servant, the Meshamesh Leika Avda. Yes, we are a Kodesh Baruch Hu's loving children, and he's a loving father. But we need to combine Yiro with Ahava, Dechilo together with Rechimo. And it is only then that we pass the test and rise to the challenge. Karachem Av al Bonim Rechem Hashem al Yerei Av. As I explained last week, Rosh Hashanah, Seres Yemei is the combination of Dechilo and Rechimo. So we turn to our Kodesh Baruch Hu with double language, Ovinu Malkeinu, Im Kevonim, Ve'im Ka'avodim. Im Kebonim Rachameinu Keracham Aval Bonim, Ve'im Ka'avodim. Einenu Lachot Tluyo Yisat Shetechonenu V'toitzi Ka'or Mishputenu, Oyom Kodesh. So this has been a difficult year. As I said at the beginning of today's shiur, Tichlech Shona v'kir lo'iseo tochel Shona v'berchoiseo. Some parts of the tefillah we say, but they were never as relevant as they will be this year. Mi yichya v'mi yomus, mi berash, mi b'magefo. Ovinu malkeinu, mena megefo menachloseinu. In normal circumstances, you watch your health, you know your cholesterol level, you do a colonoscopy once in a few years, you watch your diet, you do your exercise, you could be relatively comfortable that you're not going to drop dead in 5 minutes. But with this coronavirus, we lost our sense of confidence. There is no stability, and you really don't know what could happen. You could be so careful, as I said before, and suddenly come down with this virus. Mi berash, mi b'magefo. Whoever dreamed about magefis, we thought those are stories in the history books, stories of our distant past. The past is never past. It's present. It's right here, right now, and we are very worried. So I think this Rosh Hashanah is different. We approach Rosh Hashanah with broken hearts, humbled, really kibar shivyo, the meschanen lemorei. We stand humbled before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, pleading and begging, Kosveinu l'chaim toivim, Avu rachamim, zoich yetzurav l'chaim barachamim, uchsoiv l'chaim toivim kol b'nei brisecho. We should only know b'soides toivis Yeshua's v'nachamis. Kodesh Baruch Hu should take this away. And when he takes corona away, let him also take away cancer and so many terrible ailments and illnesses. He should take away all our pain and suffering. He should send us Mashiach Tzidkenu, and that'll solve all our problems. Shetei shona zu shnas oiro shnas brocho. Shnas go'ula v'yeshua b'bias Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheru v'yomeinu amen. A good gebenched yor, shona toive mesuka, aksiva v'chasim et toive lono v'lakol beis Yisrael.